This is Eli Modlin with an SUTV News update. At approximately 6 p.m. tonight, a fatal shooting took place on Onley Road. This is a heavily populated student living area off of the Salisbury University campus. At this time, law enforcement believed that this was a domestic incident which resulted in a murder-suicide. Okay, as you will see during the press conference, school officials such as President Eschbach, Vice President Faust, and Chief Lashley were on the scene with law enforcement officials such as Sheriff Lewis and Chief Barbara Duncan. We're now going to go to that press conference that SUTV was on the scene for. You're going to be hearing Mike Lewis, the Sheriff of Wacomico County, for the majority of this press conference.
Gunshot wounds, and she is a student of Salisbury University. I have joining with me now Chief Ed Lashley of the Salisbury University Police Department, Chief Barbara Duncan of the Salisbury City Police Department, State's Attorney Matt Massarello, Madam President of Salisbury University, Dane Faust, who's Vice President of Student Affairs, and Salisbury University Public Affairs Officer. We have very limited information right now as to the identities of the victims. We're still trying to confirm the identities, and we're still trying to notify their families so they're not notified by the media. But we are certainly trying to confirm the identities of our victims at this time. Chief, would you like to add anything?
Yes, sir.
Chief?
No, I'm good.
Mr. State's Attorney?
No, thanks.
Madam President? Any further questions?
Let me just say, I will have an announcement, an email that will go out to the campus community later this evening, probably by 10 o'clock.
So you said 3 people suffering gunshot wounds?
That's correct.
2 are deceased?
That's correct.
And the third is flown to the hospital?
That is correct. Been flown to Baltimore for further treatment.
Can we anything about the shooter himself? Was that one of the people that was injured?
He's one of the individuals that is deceased, and I can tell you that there is no reason to be alarmed at this time. We firmly believe that the shooter is deceased.
So can we murder-suicide?
That is correct.
How many weapons were involved?
Appears to be one weapon, semi-automatic.
Was there anyone else inside the home at the time?
There was.
How many other people?
At least one individual.
The other one.
Now, you saw part of the press conference in which Sheriff Mike Lewis reiterated to students, and we've heard this time and time again from various law enforcement officials, that they do not believe that students are in any type of danger at this point. They believe the shooter to be dead, so they do not feel as though students are in danger. We're now going to go to Caitlin Cleveland, who I'm with me on set, who was also at the scene. And Caitlin, can you give us some of the facts and details that you have tonight?
Well, Eli, most of the things you heard from Mike Lewis in the press conference, but a couple of things that I don't know if were mentioned is that there were multiple shots fired on the scenes, and the only weapon recovered was a semi-automatic handgun. And like you said earlier, is that it was believed to be a incident of domestic violence, which had led to an apparent murder-suicide. Again, like we know, there were 4 people involved in the shooting. 2 are deceased, one of them being the shooter, and one being an unknown male victim, neither of which were Salisbury students. There was at least one SU student involved. She has been flown to shock trauma in Baltimore to receive further treatment for her injuries. We do not know what injuries these are and to what extent. There was one other person who was was believed to be taken to PRMC for treatment of flesh wounds. She was, like I said, present at the time of the crime and will and is being questioned by detectives to find out a little bit more about what happened. There were no details on the identity of any of the shooter or any of the other victims involved. What we do know is that one person was an SU student and is being flown to Baltimore to shock trauma.
Okay, I want you to stay here with me. I know you have some more input as to things that you saw on the scene, people crying,
Yes.
some emotion. So I want you to stay here. Right now, I just want to read part of a statement with City Council President Jacob Day, who was in a City Council meeting during the shooting. And this is paraphrasing. Council member Day said that this is obviously an unspeakable tragedy for the Salisbury University family, for the city of Salisbury. He says that there is no telling the emotions and misdirections that were going on in this young man's head, and police have confirmed that this was a young male who was the shooter. And Jacob Day says that this is a time for the Salisbury University community and the city of Salisbury to wrap their arms around the university and support each other. Mr. Day also wants everyone in the university community to know that the families of these students, these victims, and the university itself are in his prayers. And again, the city council was in a meeting at the time of the shooting. I also want to let everyone know that Dr. Faust and President Eschbach have confirmed that there will be counseling services available on campus tomorrow.
And tonight.
And tonight, thank you. And they again reiterate that students are safe, but they will be talking about this issue tomorrow. I now want to read that part of Dr. Eschbach's statement that was sent out to students. She says, "Dear members of the Salisbury University campus community, many of you have heard about this evening's shooting on Onley Road near campus. The Wacomico County Sheriff's Office has described this as a murder-suicide. The alleged perpetrator no longer poses a threat to the campus community or the greater community, as he is one of the deceased. Neither of the two individuals who died is believed to be a Salisbury University student." She's extended her condolences and her prayers to those involved and says that the counseling center is open this evening and will also be open tomorrow for those seeking comfort and guidance. Sheriff Lewis talked about how rare of an event this was for this to even involve SU students, and let alone to happen in the Salisbury community. And Caitlin, now I want you to talk about some of the emotions that you saw as you were on the scene. I understand that people were coming when things were wrapping up while the police were there. Talk about that a bit for us.
Yes, definitely. When we were first arrived on the scene, there was a few students, many different theories being thrown around, but that weren't confirmed nor confirmed until the press conference. But definitely towards the end of when people started figuring out what was happening, there were plenty of students and neighbors who were shocked, and many of them knew the victim, who, like I said, there has been no names revealed, so we do not know who those victims are. Were very distraught and upset about what was going on. We don't know whether it's if they knew the victim or what, or we really don't know anything at this point. But there's definitely lots of distraught students, visibly upset students, comforting one another. I know Dr. Dudley Eschbach was comforting many students, trying to talk to them. And like you said earlier, the counseling center will be open tonight, second floor of GUC, and will be open tomorrow. So anyone that needs to go there is welcome to and encouraged to.
Okay, now I want to go to an interview with a resident of the area that was on the scene. She had a bit of insight as to something that was going on as the police were arriving. If we can go to that interview now.
We had just finished up dinner and homework. My mom hollers as she saw some police officers pull up on the side of the road and jump out of the car with their hands on their guns and running down the street. So we all came out to check and see what was going on. We heard that K-9 was being released, and it's just a scary thing. I have two young boys, nephews, living in the house, and my grandparents that stay a few houses down, and there's a lot of stuff actually that takes place on the street a lot with all the college kids. A lot of times calls are made to the police for certain activity going on the streets. Sometimes it takes a while for the police to respond, and we have to have a situation like this where lives are actually taken for people to hop on something, which I think is unfortunate. I've been living on this street for 25 years, and the past few years every year things are just getting worse and worse. It's just a sad situation and scary for the families who still live on the street. So,
what would you estimate the normal response time is?
It depends on what you call for. To me, even if a noise, calling for noise, it could be like a half an hour. But I mean, when you have people running up on top of vehicles, throwing bottles through windows, even when you call about stuff like that, it's still nice amount of time. I'd probably say between 20, 30 minutes. So.
And what you had there was the resident really describing how she knew something was wrong. She's talking about the normal response time that they get from the Salisbury law enforcement and how quickly they responded to these gunshots, how quickly police responded when they heard something. We did hear from someone on the scene that was there when police arrived that there were various law enforcement agencies. There were Fruitland police officers, there were Wacomico County sheriffs, and there were Salisbury police officers dressed in different type of gear. Some had on visible bulletproof vests, some did not. We also can tell you that this took place outside of the Salisbury city line, which is why the Wacomico County Sheriff are the lead law enforcement agency on this case. Now, obviously, Salisbury police did respond, as well as Fruitland police, but this took place outside of the city lines. And I want to reiterate that the shooter was not a resident of the house. Again, the shooter was not a resident of the house. He is someone who is believed to have come in. There was some type of domestic issue, and then he took a life before he took his own. SUTV News will be following this. You can follow us on Twitter at SUTV1 for constant updates, and we'll be back on SUTV tomorrow with a report on this. Signing off for all of us at SUTV News, this is Eli Modlin.